Uber drivers of Reddit, what is your best story as a driver? What is your worst/scariest story? Once, our Lyft driver told us it was tequila time, and without missing a beat, she pulled out a bottle and shot glasses. She handed one to each of us, including herself, and we all took a shot together. Afterward, she drove us straight to the bars. Yeah, that happened. I picked up a group of guys who were headed to a friend's hotel room to drink. They had a garbage bag stuffed with Bud Light. But on the way, they switched plans and decided to hit up a bar instead. When we got there, they walked off without the bag of beers. I pointed it out, and they told me to keep it as a tip. That was 3 weeks ago, and I still have plenty left. After a night of drinking, I hopped into an Uber alone, and my driver looked like he'd just finished a run, kind of sweaty. When I asked him how his night was going, he told me his last ride was with a cute, pretty drunk girl who started making out with him when they got to her place. She then gave him head in the car, and asked if he wanted to come inside. Yeah, safe to say he was having a way better night than I was. I've driven all kinds of people as an Uber Black driver, but one ride still haunts me. It was a quiet evening when I picked up a couple in their 40s from a restaurant. From the moment they got in, the tension was thick, muttered arguments, sharp glances. I kept my eyes on the road, hoping they'd keep it civil until we reached their stop. Then, just before arriving, it happened. Out of nowhere, the man hauled back and punched the woman square in the face hard. My stomach dropped. Before I could react, he pulled out a knife, waving it between her and me, his voice low and dangerous. "Take it outside," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. The second they stepped onto the curb, I hit the gas and drove off. But I couldn't shake the image of that woman's face. So I went straight to the sheriff's office. Thankfully, Uber Black cars have interior cameras. The deputies reviewed the footage, and within minutes, they were on their way to arrest him. Uber followed up, taking my statement. I don't know what happened to that woman after, but I hope she got out. Some rides stick with you longer than others. This one reminded me that the road isn't always just about getting from point A to point B. Sometimes it's about doing what you can before it's too late. Here's a funny story. My friend, who also drives for Uber, was telling me about this one time a girl peed in his car. He said it was both hilarious and gross at the same time. Fast forward a week later, and I'm driving when a passenger casually mentions how she peed in some guy's car the week before. I instantly freaked out, and she noticed, even joking that I started driving faster. When we finally reached her destination and she got out, I told her I actually knew the driver whose car she'd peed in. After that, nothing too crazy or funny has happened to me. I don't drive past 2 a.m. For that exact reason. It started as just another late-night ride share. I was in the back seat, tipsy and flirting with my date, when things escalated quicker than expected. One minute we were making out, the next, well, let's just say hands started wandering. About halfway through the world's most awkward hand job, the driver suddenly adjusted his rearview mirror. We locked eyes in the reflection. The mood evaporated instantly. My date and I sat in stunned silence for the rest of the ride, suddenly very interested in our respective windows. The driver never said a word, but when we got out, he gave me a look that said, "Really? In my car?" I tipped extra. Some experiences are worth paying for, if only to never speak of them again. I was in Chicago, picking up two guys who had just come from a Billy Corgan concert. They hopped in and wanted to play their own music, asking if I liked Queen. Of course, I said yes. He immediately blasted Bohemian Rhapsody, and we all sang along. When that ended, he asked what I liked, so I told him Rush. He threw on Tom Sawyer, and we jammed out. Then he switched it up and played some Van Halen, and we kept the vibe going. As we pulled up to their place, the guy in the back said, "Great ride. We should have filmed that. It would have made an awesome Uber commercial." It's moments like that that really make the night memorable. I had this girl get so drunk that she passed out cold. I tried everything to wake her up, but nothing worked. Eventually, I called the paramedics, and they had to give her a pretty hard slap to get her to come to. The paramedic asks, "Hey Jay, you ready to go to the hospital?" She groggily responds, "Woo, let's go." The paramedic, relieved, says, "All right, she said it. Let's get her out of here." My dad drives for Uber in Dallas, and a few weeks back, he got a request from a really upscale neighborhood in the suburbs. When he arrived, a woman came out and handed him a makeup kit. Apparently, her daughter had forgotten it before heading to the ACM Awards. So my dad ended up delivering the kit to a nice hotel near the event. When he got there, the girl's dad came outside to meet him and handed him an extra $50 tip on top of the regular fare. My dad told him that tipping wasn't necessary, but the man just laughed and said, "Hey, you just saved me a drive home over some makeup." I'm not a driver, but I had a really awesome experience with one. My college graduating class had just left an event, and it was pouring rain. We were in a part of the city we didn't know well, and when our Uber driver called to tell us where he was, we couldn't see him. We were huddled under a roof, trying to stay dry, and had trouble figuring out the intersections. A minute later, he calls again, asking where we are. As we're explaining, we suddenly hear his voice getting louder, and then we see a guy in a jacket running toward us. He clearly figured out we were his riders. Without hesitation, he throws his rain jacket over one of the girls and ushers us quickly to his car through the downpour. Total legend. 5 stars, no question. My very first Uber fare was in January in snowy West Michigan. I had just bought a new car, rear-wheel drive, of course, which isn't ideal for snow. I picked up 3 people, one of whom was completely wasted. When we got to their place, the other 2 couldn't manage to get the drunk guy inside. So I got out, hoisted him up in a fireman carry, and brought him into the house while the other 2 were cracking up and filming the whole thing on Snapchat. When I went to leave, I realized my car was stuck in a snowbank. Thankfully, the other 2 came out and helped push me free. All in all, it was a chaotic mess, but I still got a 5-star rating, so it's all good. After a night of partying, my friend suddenly decided she had to get her nipples pierced. She went through with it and immediately regretted it. I'm pretty sure it was the most painful experience of her life so far. We were staying on a ship, long story, and there was a strict 1 a.m. curfew. As that deadline crept up and my friend was quietly crying from the pain, we called an Uber to rush us back. The entire ride, she was trying not to cry while repeatedly telling our poor driver, "Don't get your nipples pierced. Don't let anyone you love get their nipples pierced. Don't even let your enemies do it. Just don't." When we got to the dock, We found out the main gate had closed at 10 p.m., and we had no clue how to get back on board. Thankfully, our driver came through. He somehow figured out a way to get us to the right entrance just in time. Definitely one of the weirder nights I've had. A few weeks ago, my friend had a really bad Uber experience. Normally, she enjoys chatting with drivers, but this time she was trying to rebook her flight and politely mentioned a few times that she needed to focus. The driver didn't take the hint and kept trying to make conversation. On top of that, the driver couldn't find her hotel, just a standard airport hotel, and ended up driving her around for over 30 minutes. When my friend finally asked what was going on, the driver completely lost it and kicked her out of the car in the middle of a city she didn't know. She ended up reporting the driver to Uber right after. Needless to say, it was a pretty unsettling experience. Around 2 a.m., I picked up 3 passengers, 2 guys and a woman, all appearing to be in their late 40s and very drunk. The ride was supposed to be short, less than 10 minutes, but things got chaotic the moment they got in. The woman and one of the guys sat in the back and immediately started arguing. She was loudly threatening to punch him in the face, while he kept saying over and over that he was super chill. The guy in the front seat wasn't helping. He was egging her on like it was entertainment. It quickly became obvious that the back seat tension stemmed from the guy trying to make a move on her, and she wasn't having it. Well, sort of. Just as I was debating whether to pull over and kick them all out before things escalated, the front seat guy suddenly shifted gears and suggested they all be friends. His peace offering? That she flashed them. Surprisingly, she paused for about 15 seconds, then declared it a great idea and pulled up her shirt. She was sitting behind me, so I didn't turn around. Didn't seem worth it. The ride wrapped up with the 2 guys awkwardly patting her chest like kids cautiously petting a strange animal. We pulled up to another bar. They piled out laughing, and somehow, they still got 5 stars. I drive for Lyft. It was a typical Friday night when I picked up a couple outside a bar. The girl was crawling into the car, completely wasted, while her boyfriend yelled behind her, "Beb, baby, get in the Lyft." Then to me, "Oh hey, what's up, bro?" Back to her, "Baby." She spills into the back seat, and I ask where they're headed. The guy gives me an address, which I assume is his apartment. Spoiler, it's not. It's another bar. I'm parked in a bike lane on a busy one-way street, about to merge into traffic. I check my rearview mirror, and that's when I see it, a fountain of vomit spewing from the back seat straight into the street. At the same time, a black Prius pulls into the bike lane right in front of me. Turns out, that's the car that just got nailed by the projectile puke. The driver gets out and checks the side of his car, and I brace myself, fully expecting a confrontation. I jump out and start apologizing, explaining that I'm a Lyft driver and didn't see it coming. To my surprise, he goes, "Dude, me too. I'm just here to pick someone up from this same bar." Right then, a guy stumbles out of the bar and yells, "Are you Derek? You look like the guy in this little picture." He tries showing the other Lyft driver his app. Derek says, "Man, I just got puke on my car. I gotta go home and wash this off. I can't give you a ride." That's when it turned into a full-on sitcom. The guy in my back seat, let's call him Chad, who had been silently staring at his phone, suddenly gets out and yells, "Who's this chode lover?" Brad, the guy outside, sees Chad and goes, "What are you doing here?" "Chad, I was at 4th Street." With Kelsey. Brad. In no way, I was in there too. Is she passed out? Chad. Of course she is. She better wake up. We're heading to Myth. Brad. In no way. I was heading to Myth for Rachel's birthday SHIT. Chad, what man? That's why I was going too. Next thing I know, I'm driving Chad, Brad, and unconscious Kelsey a few blocks over to Myth. Poor Derek drives off to power wash his puke-covered Prius. During the ride, I have the loudest conversation I've ever had in a car. Turns out Chad and Brad are housemates, literally living in rooms across the hall, and somehow didn't realize they were both going to the same birthday party with bottle service at the same bar. Oh, and Chad had asked Brad to be his best man just a month earlier. Because, yes, Chad and Kelsey are engaged. How do two guys who live together, probably RSVP to the same Facebook event, and hang out all the time, not realize they're going to the same party? No clue. Oh, and Kelsey? She woke up when we got to the bar and walked inside like nothing happened. Just needed a solid puke nap. I've given over 5,000 rides, so I got plenty of stories, too many to tell in full. But here are a few memorable ones. There was the night I picked up a stripper in Echo Park, only to have a very elderly hooker try to get in the car near Deja Vu on Main. One random afternoon in Burbank, I found a chameleon crossing the street. I rescued him. He just wanted to climb on everything. Ended up giving him to a reptile breeder in East Hollywood. Then there were the two straight girls making out in my back seat after a night of heavy drinking, mid-make-out discussing, where do we even go from here? One of my earliest rides was an 18-year-old girl I picked up in Hollywood. Took her to downtown LA. She kept flirting with me and told me how she and her friends used to get guys to bribe bouncers so they could sneak into clubs. More recently, I picked up pro skater Paul Rodriguez in the Valley. Small world, we actually grew up in the same neighborhood. Once drove a guy all the way from downtown LA to downtown San Diego. There was also a sketchy one, a passenger in South Central who turned out to be using me for drug runs. All in all, 99% of passengers aren't that memorable, but that 1%, they definitely leave a story. A friend told me about this one ride he gave. Pretty average-looking guy gets in and immediately insists on sitting up front. A little odd, but whatever. Not long into the trip, the guy starts fidgeting with something in his hands. Then he turns and says, "Want to see me make this paperclip disappear?" Now my friend's thinking, great. It's Joker time. He's going to slam it into my eye or something. Nope. He shoves it straight into the CD changer. It's been broken ever since. I've been driving for about 2 months now. Started just after rideshare services were finally allowed to operate in my area. Overall, I really enjoy it. Most of my passengers are genuinely grateful to have a ride home, especially during the late night, drunk hours, which also happen to pay the best in my market. I haven't had any scary or aggressive riders yet, but one funny moment definitely stands out. I picked up 2 drunk girls from a bar and was about halfway to their place when one of them asked how I liked driving for Uber. I told her it's been good so far and mentioned that I just wish more people knew about the service. I jokingly said, "Spread the word." Without missing a beat and very much slurring, she replied, "I'll spread the word, then spread my legs. Do you have a girlfriend?" I couldn't help but laugh and let her know I was married. Her friend immediately apologized, and that was the end of that. One of the things that cracks me up is how excited people get when they realize I'm their driver. It's always Uber driver, turn up the volume, or Uber driver, I love you, or Uber driver, turn here, turn here. I use Google Maps, but if they want the scenic route, hey, it's their ride. Last night, my wife's cousin asked if I ever carry anything for protection or worry about someone trying to carjack me. I half joked, half seriously replied, honestly, almost none of my passengers wear seatbelts. If something went down, I'd just floor it and crash into a parked car. Problem solved. It's been a fun ride so far, literally. It was a dark, icy night as I was driving home from my in-laws' house with my wife in the passenger seat and my 2 kids in the back. Suddenly, a deer darted into the road. I swerved to avoid it, but of course the ice got the best of me. With lightning-fast reflexes, I managed to do a perfect 360 right around the deer and kept on driving like nothing happened. From the back seat, I heard my kids cheering, chanting "Dad rules." It was one of those moments you'll never forget. I was stuck at a Disney resort, expensive, terrible alcohol, and to top it off, I had kidney stones. It was one of those extended family vacations. Desperate for something to make it through, I booked an Uber. I told the driver to find a gas station that sold beer, asked him to wait for me, and then drive me back. I think I may have accidentally left him a $20 tip for his trouble. And I'm pretty sure he turned off the tracker for the second half of the ride. Honestly, it was the best money I spent on that trip. I'd point you to /r/Uber drivers, but it's mostly just a bunch of entitled complaints about how drivers want Uber to pay them $100,000 a year with full benefits because of how hard they work. Nothing too exciting has happened to me, mostly because I avoid the crazy hours, like 2 a.m. on a Saturday night. I usually drive during weekend mornings, shuttling hungover folks back to their friends or cars, wherever they left them the night before. One time, I picked up a guy for what was clearly a one-night stand and drove him back to his bachelor party. Definitely not his bachelor party, I don't think. That's about the extent of my wild Uber adventures. I was taking a cab back from a night of karaoke with a few friends. My friend was chatting with the driver up front, and at one point, the driver asked, "So, have you guys been drinking?" My friend admitted we had, and the driver casually replied, "Me too." I didn't find out about this conversation until we arrived at our destination. As for my friend, he's had his fair share of wild ride experiences. Once, he took an Uber home completely hammered. He ended up puking all over himself in the back seat, but neither he nor the driver said anything about it. After being dropped off, he realized he was at the wrong address, several miles from his house and nowhere near public transportation. So, he called another Uber, only to see it was the same driver coming back to pick him up. Naturally, he canceled it immediately. Stuck in the front yard of a stranger's house, covered in his own vomit, he had to wait 15 minutes for the driver to get far enough away so he could call a different ride. To top it off, he later got hit with a $150 cleaning fee for the mess he made in the car. One of my first Uber rides was with a girl around my age, and we got into a conversation about her job. I asked her what it was like, and she shared a wild story from just a few weeks into driving. She had picked up a guy in LA, and his ride was being paid for by someone else who sent him off with her. As they drove, He barely said a word. She tried to make conversation, but he just ignored her. She was new to the whole Uber thing and didn't know how to handle it, especially since she didn't want to just leave this guy stranded in the middle of nowhere, clearly unable to afford his own ride. So, after driving for over 2 hours, she finally realized where she was heading. Turns out his destination was prison. My buddy drives Uber for extra cash, and one night, he picked up 3 giggly 16-year-old girls needing a ride to a party in San Francisco, about 45 minutes away. The whole drive, they were taking shots, rolling blunts, and tossing him wildly inappropriate comments like, "You're so hot," or so, "How big is it?" before bursting into laughter. He shrugged it off, just drunk teens being reckless, no harm done. When they arrived, the girls tried to coax him inside to join the party. He declined, but as he glanced at the house, his stomach dropped. It was one of those pristine, multi-million-dollar Victorians, the kind you see in movies. "Whose place is this?" he asked. "My boyfriend's," one girl replied casually. "Damn, his parents must be loaded," my friend said. She smirked. "Oh no, it's his house." He drove off, but the exchange stuck with him. Later, we debated over beers. Was this some trust fund kid living large, or something far creepier? Either way, that ride left him with more questions than fair money. I once took an Uber ride with an older Indian driver. He was playing some really old Hindi songs, and I couldn't help but comment, "Ariwa, Sahi Gain Lagare Kainap. Wow, you're playing great songs." He immediately brightened up and said, "Wow, you guys speak Hindi?" I replied, "Han kaya nahi, mui kamain aake Hindi todi boo jayinga." Of course, just because we're in America doesn't mean we'll forget Hindi. He smiled and shared, "It really upsets me when I pick up Indian families and everyone starts speaking in English." Just yesterday, I picked up an Indian family and there were 2 kids around 6 and 10 years old. I felt really bad because of how often they were using bad words, and their mother looked so ashamed and sad. Those kids were even insulting each other. He paused, then said, "The USA has so many great things, but very few bad ones. Always focus on the good parts. Remember to respect your elders and love your parents. Don't ever leave them just because you want freedom. They will need you most when they grow old." My friends and I ordered an Uber to take us from college to Taco Bell around 11 p.m. When we got there, we realized it was drive-through only, so we had the driver take us through. However, Taco Bell wouldn't let us place 2 separate orders, and a line started to build up, so we asked the driver to take us to the McDonald's next door. We offered to buy him something, but he politely refused. Afterward, we got back to campus and gave him a generous tip. He told us it was the strangest Uber ride he had ever had. This is a wild one. I had a girl Uber driver who seemed super chill. As we passed my high school, she casually mentioned that she was married to a guy who went there and was a year below me. The ride went great, and everything seemed normal. The next day, curious to maybe connect with her on Instagram or Facebook, I Googled her name. What came up was not what I expected. There were a bunch of legal documents detailing how she had set fire to her ex-boyfriend's parents' house and intentionally killed their pet cat in the fire, locking the poor cat in a room where she gassed the place. Turns out, everyone's got a past. When I first started driving for Uber, I'd sometimes forget to ask passengers to confirm my name to make sure they were getting into the right car. It's actually a pretty common mistake for new drivers, but one day after a Steelers game, I picked up a woman who was completely hammered. She told me her destination and then passed out right away. Less than a block later, another woman flagged me down, said my name, and confirmed she was my actual passenger. At this point, I was totally embarrassed, so I tried waking the drunk woman up to tell her she was in the wrong car, but she was too out of it to understand. She just kept insisting this car was fine and that I should drop the other woman off first, not realizing that's not how it works. My real passenger was super chill about it, and she even suggested I take the drunk woman home on her tab, since they both lived in the same area. Feeling a bit charitable, I agreed, but I definitely wasn't going to charge my actual passenger for the second trip. I was worried the drunk woman wouldn't remember her act of kindness the next day. So, I asked her if she could call her real Uber driver and cancel the ride before they made a wasted trip. She handed me her phone, asking me to do it, but when I checked, there was no Uber or Lyft app on her phone. She seemed to think we were just like regular taxis. I went ahead and continued driving my rail passenger home. The drunk woman passed out and ended up lying on top of her. I didn't notice at first, since they were both in the back seat. A few minutes later, though, I heard a blood-curdling scream from the back. Hell, the drunk woman was freaking out, screaming that she was being attacked. I quickly pulled over to the side of the road, and the car started honking at me. I turned around, trying to calm her down, shouting, "You're okay, you're okay. It's just another woman on top of you. You're not being attacked. You're both just sleeping." Meanwhile, the other woman was pressing her face into the drunk woman's to quiet her down. Eventually, I got the drunk woman to snap out of it. She started asking why someone was lying on top of her, but she was too drunk to make sense of it. I quickly came up with a simple explanation. You said you were cold. She was keeping you warm. You're sharing a ride for a split fare. Since it was winter and they were both only wearing Steelers jerseys with no long sleeves, she bought it. I dropped off my actual passenger, who thanked me and offered me a tip. I declined, but she insisted, saying I was nice enough to put up with her. I told her, "You didn't do anything wrong. You were kind enough to share your ride, and then had to deal with all the screaming." She handed me a few dollars anyway, so I took them. I still had the drunk woman's address in my GPS history, so I headed to her house. She woke up on the way there and told me to pull over because she was going to throw up. She stood outside the car for 5 minutes, but never actually threw up. 5 minutes felt like an eternity, especially since this was essentially a free ride, and I just wanted to get back on the road and make some money. She finally got back in the car, saying it was a false alarm. We finally made it to her house. I had to help her out of the car and up to her porch, where she passed out on a swinging bench. I knocked on the door, hoping someone would answer. A guy opened it, looked me up and down, and asked who I was. I told him I was an Uber driver and asked if he knew this woman. He shrugged and said she didn't take me to the Steeler game, so she can freeze for all I care. Luckily, he didn't shut the door in my face. After another 10 minutes, I helped the woman inside and made sure the door was closed behind her. Drunks. Gata lobbying. This didn't happen to me, but I heard a crazy story from an Uber driver before he picked us up. He told me about a customer he had, a guy from New Zealand, who was traveling with a bunch of suitcases and equipment. The driver had to take him to the jetty in Fremantle, Western Australia, because there was a massive military boat docked there. The New Zealand guy was sent to film some footage of it. After dropping him off, the guy turned to the driver and said, "How would you like to make some quick cash if you help me out with something while we're here?" The driver, curious, agreed, and the guy asked him to fly a drone around the ship while he recorded about 30 seconds of footage. Apparently, the drone was worth around $15,000, and the driver ended up earning $200 just for flying it for a few minutes. About 2 months ago, I was in a lift with a few friends when our driver accidentally hit a homeless guy. His head hit the windshield hard, leaving a huge crack, but somehow he just got up and kept walking like nothing happened. The driver, a bit shaken but not knowing what else to do, just got back in the car and drove us to the bar. A friend of mine, an American girl, got drunk and passed out in an Uber. The next morning, she woke up in her own bed, all tucked in, with a bowl and a glass of water beside her. Turns out, the driver was pretty thoughtful. Before helping her into her house, he asked a female neighbor if she could spare a few minutes to be there and help mediate, just to protect himself. After getting her settled in bed, he left a note for her so she wouldn't freak out when she woke up. I think it's kind of sweet, a little creepy maybe, but honestly, good on him for thinking ahead and making sure she was taken care of. One night, I got picked up by an Uber after a party, and as we were driving, I suddenly realized the driver was listening to a true crime story on the radio. It was about a man who had killed a woman and buried her in the woods. I have to admit, I was really relieved when he finally dropped me off. I've had my fair share of strange Uber drivers. Driver number one spent most of the ride casually explaining that Jesus was actually an alien who came to Earth in a spaceship. Driver number two told me he liked being a driver because it was like a video game, and then, without missing a beat, ran a red light. Driver number three said, "I'm not married yet because I live in the ghetto. It would take a special kind of white woman to want to raise a family there." When I asked why it had to be a white woman, he told me that black women are really headstrong. Not an Uber driver myself, but my friend is definitely the story any Uber driver would have. This guy has way too much money for his own good. He owns 2 apartments, bought a 3D printer on a whim, and uses Uber for anything beyond 3 blocks. So, we're in the same fraternity, and one night, after a lot of hard liquor, he decided to prank the whole frat. We have this giant couch in our chapter room, and for some reason, he thought the best prank ever would be to steal it and bring it to his apartment, which was about 5 blocks away. The only problem was figuring out how to transport the thing that far. Naturally, my friend decided the best plan was to call an Uber XL to pick up the couch and take it to his place. By this point, he and his buddies were completely wasted. I still have no idea how they managed to cram that massive couch into the Uber, but apparently it was half hanging out of the back of the SUV, and they were holding onto it to make sure it didn't fall off on the way. I can only imagine that must have been one of the weirdest stories an Uber driver could have. I took an Uber one time, and as we were nearing my destination, driving through my neighborhood, we passed the crazy dude from the hood who was out in the street yelling at cars. As we drove by, he spat on the car. The driver immediately stopped, reached between the seat and the gear shift, and I could tell exactly where this was going. The crazy dude started walking quickly toward the car. Here's the best part. The driver opened the door just a few inches and floored it in reverse. The car door slammed into the guy's chest, sending him flying off to the side. He did a little twist and then dropped to the ground hard. He got up as fast as his drunk, schizophrenic brain could manage, yelling and cussing like a madman, but then suddenly stopped dead in his tracks. The driver said nothing. I couldn't see a gun, but I'm pretty sure that even a drunk, schizophrenic guy in suburbia gets a quick wake-up call when something like that happens. We slowly pulled away, and the guy stumbled into a house. The driver didn't bat an eye for the rest of the ride to my place. Honestly, I wasn't expecting a 60-something Grammy named Misty driving a Ford Escape to handle a situation like that. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we will see you in the next video.